We were here for President Trump's inauguration day, and now we are back really highlighting several of the successes of the Trump administration and the Republican-controlled Senate. What an honor now, broadcasting live from Washington, D.C., Capitol Hill, Montana's U.S. Senator Tim Sheehy. Senator Sheehy, great to see you as always, my friend. Yeah, it's crazy seeing you here in the Capitol because you seem too young to be here. You know, we saw you pop out of the luncheon with Vice President J.D. Vance yesterday. Just before VP Vance came out, we saw you, and it's like kind of a surreal moment to be like, wow, one of our fellow veterans is here in the United States Senate. It was a surreal moment, kind of.
Well, as I said in the campaign trail, and I meant it, it's time for a new generation of leaders. And it doesn't mean that many of our senior leaders need to go, but it does mean that especially our generation, the GWAT generation, that joined up and fought during our nation's longest war, who had to get jobs during the great financial crisis, have had to live and grow families through COVID. I mean, we had some pretty historic times in the last 25 years, and our generation has had to fight through those. And I think it's time for us to have a voice on Capitol Hill in the halls of power. And as the youngest Republican member of the Senate, it's an honor to be here and be a voice for a generation, especially when we start talking about these really challenging issues like foreign policy. What are we going to do with our military? How do we rebuild our military? How do we deploy our military? As you and I were both part of our exploratory campaigns around the world post 9/11 and learned that the limits of military power are very real. There's things we can and should do with our military, and there's things we should not be doing with our military. So I think our voice is so important that it's heard at this point in time.
When you look at what Secretary Hegseth is doing, Secretary of War Hegseth, and what President Trump is doing on the foreign policy front, big picture, what do you see happening?
America first. America first does not mean America alone or America only, but it does mean America first. And when you really boil that down, it's just common sense. Just like a parent does what's best for their children, takes care of their children. A parent may love all children, care about all children in the world, but at the end of the day, we're worried about our kids first. We're worried about our households first. If you're CEO of a company, you're worried about your company first. So it's not unrealistic and unreasonable to expect that our elected leaders need to worry about what's best for America first. So what our foreign policy is orienting around is we're still standing with our allies. We're still standing with Australia, with the AUKUS agreement was just reaffirmed. I was with the Prime Minister of Australia last week and the President, and we've reaffirmed our alliance with Australia and how important it is in Indo-PACOM. The President's in Asia as we speak, seeing our allies. So we're with our allies, but it also means that we are focused on what's best for our country.
About 30 seconds before the break, you just had Montana coffee right in Senator Daines' office, right next to the conference room we're broadcasting from right now. Who'd you see across Montana?
Well, we had some great 4-H kids in from Belgrade. It was wonderful to see them. They're here doing a bit of a government education this week, some homeschool kids, which is a homeschool dad myself. I have my kids here during the shutdown because we're kind of stuck here, so I've got my kids in town giving some constitutional education. Of course, we had some folks here from our Montana churches as well. So it's always great to see Montanans in D.C. meeting the delegation.
Yeah, it's a great time, and it's great to see you here as well. What else is going on back here that you think people in Montana need to hear about that's not getting attention?
I think they need to understand the mechanics of the shutdown and why it's happening because, if you turn on whatever news station you turn on, you're going to hear a narrative that matches whatever party they affiliate with. But the truth is, all that's attempting to be done, what we've voted for 12 times now, is a continuing resolution, stable funding. This is Biden funding, to be clear. This is an extension of the Biden funding bill that the Democrats enacted last year. And all we're saying is extend this so we can finish the appropriations process, because the appropriations process is, by design of our founders, it's a hard thing to get an appropriations bill through, as it should be. The problem is, about 30 years ago, we decided that the appropriations process was too hard, and therefore we're just going to skip it and do continuing resolutions and minibuses and omnibuses and every other way we can skip the hard, rigorous appropriations process that our framers built into this Article 1 branch of government. And, what we're feeling now is really, yes, it is a Schumer shutdown. It's stupid Chuck Schumer and a stupid shutdown that's ruining lives across the country because he is captive to his left-wing base. But he's the symptom. The real problem is we've drifted away from the appropriations process, which Leader Thune, to great credit, he's a great leader in the Senate. I'm so proud to work with him and serve under him. His top priority as leader of the Senate was, I'm bringing back regular order to our appropriations process. We're going to start budgeting through our appropriations committees and passing a budget again. and we're going to do that under my leadership. So because he's forced that to happen, we have passed appropriations bills, which that hasn't happened in a long time. The Appropriations Committee has done its job. Chuck Schumer is preventing that from moving forward because he's worried about his left-wing base, so he's holding the government hostage.
And I heard a theory last night, which they're thinking that maybe Schumer keeps this going through the November elections because they don't want to anger their left-wing base because they feel they need the left-wing base for the Kami Mamdani in New York and Virginia races and New Jersey races. So they will continue the pain for their own people even to satisfy their radical left base.
This is purely political. It's all. There's no policy underpinning this because it is their policy. We're trying to extend their funding bill.
Yeah. Hey, let's start with the beef markets. Let's start with the cattle industry and much more because, of course, Senator Tim Sheehy, not only a Navy SEAL veteran, but you've also got the Little Bell Cattle Company. In fact, I just saw somebody with a Little Bell Cattle Company ball cap on yesterday, and of course, but you just had this big ag summit last week. I mean, this was a huge deal, the Common Ground Summit, But you've been focused on these types of issues long before you ever even thought about running for office. And so the big picture when we talk about beef is how do we rebuild the cattle herds in the United States of America? How do we also lower the price for the consumer without undermining the effort to rebuild the herds in America?
You hit the nail on the head, and ag is a complicated subject. To the average American outside looking in, ag's simple. What's ag to the average American? I'm going to go to the grocery store and I can grab anything I want off the shelf: avocado, banana, flour, fresh beef, fresh whatever it is. It's all available at the fingertips. And for most Americans, they just have this perception that these things just pop out of a warehouse somewhere, and just arrive on my shelf, and I can get any piece of produce I want year round in all 50 states, which is a very rare. This is like the last 60 years we've had that luxury. It has not been that long that human beings get any food they want year round wherever they want it. And America is pretty unique in that regard. But the bottom line is food security is national security. And one of our greatest, most quiet superpowers we've ever had as the most powerful nation in the history of mankind is our ability to feed ourselves. And not just feed ourselves, but also feed the rest of the world. And you look at every other empire in history that has met its end, they all met their end when they had to import food from other places. When Rome had to import food, when the British, living on a tiny island, had to import food, had to import resources. The Japanese, which led obviously to World War II. Time and again, we've had empires who have not been able to feed themselves. And although America is not an empire, we are the most powerful nation in history. And our ability to feed ourselves has been a key underpinning structural component of that. We've been very short-sighted in allowing our food industry and agriculture to be offshored, as we have with manufacturing for the last 30 years. And the low beef prices that for 25, 30 years have harmed our ranchers, and the crop prices, which have also recently especially been nosediving, are harming our ag community in very negative ways. Now, lately, beef has rebounded, and that's very good for our ranchers. We want it to be that way. Now, there's concern on the consumer side. We want beef prices down. The truth is, beef prices have been too low for a long time, and they've been harming our ranchers. Now, the price at the store is not what ranchers are getting. When the cow-calf operator sells his cattle, on the hoof, puts them on the truck, and he gets a check for that, that's not equivalent to what, for example, just yesterday, cattle prices dropped 50 cents a head. It says 50 cents a pound, yet box beef prices went up $3. So inverse correlation there. What does that mean? That means more margin for the packers. So we've had an over-consolidated meat pack industry. 83% of meats in the U.S. are packaged by 4 companies, 3 of which are foreign-owned. We've surrendered control of a lot of our meat supply in this nation to foreign countries and foreign-owned corporations. So we had a fantastic summit last week. Joe Goggins of Billings was kind of the chair of it, put together a great group. All 50 states were represented. And the purpose of the summit, we had Secretary Rollins there for a couple of hours. We had 6 senators, a handful of House members. And the point was, ranchers are an individualistic bunch. Typically, you can't get them in a room to agree on much, and they want to mind their own herd. They want to take care of themselves. They don't want the government to help. But it's important, I believe, at this inflection point for American agriculture, especially multi-generation agriculture, that their issues are heard in D.C. Every other industry is here every single day, all day, lobbying for what's good for their industry. The ranching industry has not been. So it was important to have them here and have their concerns heard about tax incentives for families to hold on to their ranching operations, not sell them. Tax incentives for how they can buy equipment and grow their operations. Regulatory policies like grazing rights that were severely infringed during the Biden administration to make sure that grazing rights are respected and expanded. And of course, our foreign imports of foreign countries' beef, which is has always been a structural component of our market, but we have to balance that to make sure that as we rebuild the American herd, ranchers aren't going to reinvest in growing their herds if we don't incentivize them to. If they're more incentivized to sell their ranch land and cash out than they are to invest in their business, then we can't expect them to regrow their herds. So it was very important at this point, this turning point in American ag, that we had some of the biggest producers in America, not packers, but the cow-calf operators, the growers, the feeders in the room saying, I want to stay in the ag business. I want my kids to inherit the ag business, but we need to see these changes if we're going to do that.
Yeah, and how we get more meat processing done locally.
Exactly.
And that's something you've been a big part of, like I say, even long before you ever even thought of running for office. A couple minutes to go here with U.S. Senator Tim Sheehy as we broadcast live from Capitol Hill. The Fix Our Forests Act. We're going to talk about that in a little more detail here with Chairman Westerman coming in from the House side here a little bit later this hour. But this is a topic you are leading on. You are also an aerial firefighter. You've been leading on as a freshman senator, actually getting legislation across the finish line.
I'm the first and only, I'm the first and only freshman to actually get a bill passed into law so far, and actually we've had a couple passed now, and I'm so proud of that because in this one, FOFA, the Fix Our Forest Act, is really a landmark piece of legislation. This will go down in history like the Great American Outdoors Act did. This piece of legislation is bipartisan from the very beginning. Alex Padilla, myself, John Curtis, John Hickenlooper, understanding that our forests and our public lands have been mismanaged for far too long. Our federal agencies have not been responsive to the will of the people. Most importantly, the will of local residents who live around these lands, the industries that are there, our logging industries, our grazers, realizing that, yes, public lands are for recreation, no question. Yes, they're for hunting and angling and hiking and backpacking and all that. They're also for production agriculture to feed our nation. They're also to get timber, to build our homes. They're also to mine and get the critical rare earths that we're buying from China right now. So common sense management and, most importantly, wildfire fighting.
All right. Well, Senator Tim Sheehy, great to see you as always. We'll catch up later on down the road.